once again by Jamie Acton. Aaron is on the mend, but he's still not quite right to join us. Hopefully for the next one. Jay, how you doing? Yeah, very well, mate. Very well. We haven't actually done an episode for about a week and a half because I've got a baby on the way, and we thought she was coming. And we just thought we'd do it when we had a bit more time. So we're not going to go into too much detail of the United game. We know everyone's thoughts and feelings on that. We're going to do a general kind of review of the season and go from there, see where it takes us. So we'll start, Jay, with game of the season. Yeah, Bayern.
Written in the stars, really. First game back in Europe's elite competition at home. So I just felt surreal being up there, hearing the music, and against Bayern Munich, who, barring probably United, Barcelona, and Real Madrid, probably the next biggest club in the world. So the day was just mad, really. I mean, the stars they had, like Neuer. I mean, I think Neuer, especially in my lifetime, he's the best keeper I've ever seen. So to see him live as well. The fact we beat him 1-0, the same score 40 years prior. The fact it was our number 9 who scored. The goal times were very similar as well. I don't know if you noticed that as well. It was just how the game kind of unfolded as well. I thought, especially, obviously, I thought as a whole we defended quite well, but then obviously when we got the goal, I think that they had a where are you gone?
Touch wrong button.
I thought that we scored, we obviously sat a little bit more in. I think Musiala had the chance, and then I can't remember who had the other chance. I think it was Kane. But then barring that, they had the Elise one from range in the first half. But obviously they had a lot of the ball we had to sit in. Again, very similar to how the game went in '82. So yeah, just a bit like everything, the nostalgia behind it, the fact that probably the loudest or one of the loudest I've heard Villa Park. It gets to the point where it's only happened a few times. It happened against City when we beat them last season, 1-0. Leon Bailey. It happened PSG, and it happened Bayern Munich, where it's so loud you can feel like the concrete like below you kind of like shake a little bit, and it's mad. So I've definitely the game of the season for me would be Bayern Munich. What Villa page it was, but I went on there, and it was a Newcastle fan was one of the first comments on there, and it basically said about, oh yeah, we beat you to Champions League this year. You have to tell your best players we keep Isak, we keep blah blah blah. And then someone responded to it, and it makes so much sense. He was like, I don't understand Newcastle's reason to force a rivalry, because it has been happening. I don't for the past like season and a bit. It feels like they're trying to force a rivalry. And then I was thinking today when I was out, I was thinking, why is that? And they don't have, obviously now Sunderland have come up, but they don't have anyone like Borough, Sunderland. They're not in the same league. Again, Sunderland are now, but they haven't been for a while. So they have no like local derby. They have no one to kind of go up against. So they're just going against I remember it all kind of kicked off when they had that 2-legged affair in the League Cup against Arsenal. They were just going for Arsenal fans, and they seem to go for us as well. seems to be us and Arsenal. They just seem to force rivalries, and I don't know why. Like even that, like whatever, whoever he is, I don't know who he is, but like, why would you? What like who in their right? Like I would have gone to Newcastle podcast and be like, oh yeah, like Villa till I die, shit on the team. Like I couldn't give a fuck what Newcastle do. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, true, true. Yeah, fair point.
Dismantling the top six. So, I mean,
Newcastle just turned on us, and I was like, oh Jesus. Yeah, yeah.
I'm guessing you've got Tielemans. Yeah, he's been absolutely just class all season, really, not put a foot wrong. So he played pretty much every Premier League game, didn't he, until he picked up that injury right at the end. I knew Tielemans was good. I didn't expect him to have as good a season as he had this year. Um, Credit to him, obviously credit to Emery, but were you expecting him to be as influential? Is probably the right word. Well, when he signed to turn into somebody that would be as influential as he has been for the duration of the season.
That Leicester team should never have got relegated with the amount of talent they had. But even I said you got here. I said that you had him, Madison, as like the main ones. But like for Tielemans, I've always said he's a Champions League level player, and he came in last year, and obviously Boober and Dougie were our set two, and he was playing off the right. If you remember, he started playing off the right, or sometimes off a volley, and it just didn't seem to work for him. And then obviously Boober has his injury, and then obviously things happen. You get rotation in there, and then yeah, he just seemed to kick on. Because I remember AZ Alkmaar away when we won 4-1. That was his first goal, and I remember people. He was playing off the right that day. This is pre Rogers and stuff, so he was playing off the right that day. And I remember the lineup came out, and people's kind of eyebrows were raised because they were like, "Well, this team got to the semi-finals of the Conference League the year prior, so you know we've got to be up for it. Why are we playing Tielemans?" And I remember he scored, and he was so good that, and he kind of kicked on from there. And in a way, the Boober injury helped Yuri out because he then dropped in and hit that partnership with Dougie he had, and you know this year obviously we know how good he is with Onana. He's just been the line breaking passes. Like I mean, Dougie was good, but in terms of line breaking passes, I don't think I've seen a midfielder at Villa be as good as that. And obviously, it helps having talent further up. You know, you got the likes of Asensio and Rogers that will find space no matter what situation they're in. And as long as they find that little bit of space, he'll find them no matter what. And yeah, I just think he was been everywhere this season. You know, he's played off the right once or twice. He's played off the striker. He's played as a DM, and just I can't remember who was it we were linked with in the week. And oh no, sorry, it was the Feyenoord striker we just signed, and the Feyenoord fans are saying, "Oh no, he's raw, he's clunky, he's no good, like he's barely played for us." But then you know when we signed Tielemans from Leicester, everyone was saying he's too fat, he's too slow, he's good for nothing. So you can't really pay attention to what opposition fans are going to say because you know, at the end of the day, like, you know, there's bitter fans out there. When we sold Duran, I'm sure there's Villa fans saying to our massive fans, like, oh, yeah, you know, well, Ollie's our main man, otherwise we'd have sold Ollie, so he can't be that good when we all know deep down how good Duran is. So it comes from a bitter standpoint, but I mean, Yuri is just this year, he's the only one that makes sense. Rogers was good. Like, if we'd done a young player one, he would have comfortably had that. thought Luca Dean was okay as well. But Yuri Tielemans was by far head and shoulders the number one for me.
Yeah, Luca Dean was pretty consistent, but I think as we got towards the back end of the season, Maatsen probably overtook him, didn't he, for starting place.
Yeah, we'll probably see that more going into next season as well. So we don't know what's going to happen with Luca Dean, but you'd imagine Maatsen will kind of take that on forward now, wouldn't you?
I would say so. I did put down obviously Rodgers for an honourable mention because Emery loves Rodgers. We've spoke about it now in like the episodes we've done. He's never going to get dropped. He just loves him, whether he's not maybe playing in his most suited position that most of the fan base would think he should be, and playing on the right maybe, which a lot of us obviously don't like. He has to get him in the team. I've also put down Konsa because I think he's a key cog in the team, especially with obviously Powers injured for a bit and then Mings was injured. The key is Konsa back there.
I think with Ezri, he's forever underrated. Like, well, again, we've spoke about it for years. Ever since like pre-COVID, I remember seeing him at Brentford. I remember Kodjia turned him. To be fair, when I think we drew 2-2 with Brentford. Kodjia scored a brace, and I remember he turned Ezri then. But I think Ezri was only 18 or 19 at the time, and because he only had one season at Brentford when he came from Charlton, then we went up and then signed him the following year. And I remember looking at him there, I said to my old man, I was like, I thought he was unbelievable. And he was only a teenager then, or 20, whatever he was. And I said, he's unbelievable. Thankfully, we then signed him with that. We had that time with the whole Brentford connection, didn't we? And he's forever underrated. As soon as we signed him, I don't know if you remember, we had Bjorn Engels and Mings, didn't we?
Yeah,
and then we started going to three at the back, and then when COVID happened, and then he started all the time then. And yeah, for me, you have a spine of the team that you need to keep intact, and obviously for a while now it's been Martinez, Ezri. We have had Dougie, but now it's good that you now have Yuri, Rodgers, and then Ollie. That's your spine there. If that's your spine and you're improving around that, which we have been, you can't go wrong. And yeah, I was thinking today again. I was like, who in the squad could you say is, obviously everyone has a price, but who you not want to leave? Like, who's unsellable, who's undroppable? And in my head, I'd have Martinez, Konsa, Rodgers, and Yuri. Yeah, that just shows what kind of level Ezri's at. He's England's best defender. We've been saying it for many a year now. It's not something new to us. And yeah, it's he just goes under the radar because he's always in the right position at the right time. Barring the Palace semi-final, I can't remember a time when because he got turned a few times by Mateta. But apart from that, I can't remember a time when he gets beat. Like, he just doesn't get beat. He never gives the ball away. Like, even at right back, he's still like a 7 out of 10 every week. Like, it's unbelievable. And just a question to you: how, if he was to go, how much do you reckon we could get for him? I don't know how long he's got on his contract, but how much would you say he's worth?
I wouldn't sell him for anything less than 80. Personally, because I love Konsa. I think he's one of the best defenders we've ever had in my lifetime. I think he's got literally everything. He's been probably my favourite player for the last 3 or 4 seasons. I just think he's that good.
Yeah, he's one of my favourite players. The best centre half I've seen in my lifetime is probably Martin Larsson, but I think Ezri probably tips that now. I just remember growing up seeing Larsson and how great he was, and obviously shame with his injuries and stuff. But I think Ezri kind of pips that now. Like, yeah, like I said, we keep going on about it, but he's a Rolls Royce, and he has been for a long time.
I couldn't agree. I'm just looking at the comment, Andy Cook. Are you on the wind up because you put Champions League, or did you mean Europa League? We will get. We need what. I know who that is. It's not a team. He's definitely a Arsenal fan.
Who's he support?
No, nobody really. He's just got some bare football skills himself.
Maybe, yeah. He seems it.
forward. It's coming. Moment of the season, so I'm not really sure how you're going to take what your angle is on this one. But I'll put down something. I'll let you answer first. But if you could just relive one moment for the season again, what would it be?
We went 3-2 up against PSG. The celebrations I haven't seen like that in my life at Villa. It was just, we're 5-1 down on aggregate, and then we've come back. And at that time, I thought, like, we're going to do them here. They're on the ropes. We played so well. You know, obviously, it was weird after the goal. We had two chances, the Maatsen one and the Asensio one. We should have done better. But that ties in with the McGinn chance, the McGinn goal, because they're a few minutes apart. And I remember because when that McGinn chance went in, I was like, Jesus Christ, it might, if we can get one more in the next 5-10 minutes, like, these guys will fall apart. And we got one with Ezri. And it was the play by Rashford. He thought he was offside at first, and then he takes it past Fabian and Vitinha, and then he plays it across. And I just remember running across my seat number is 167, and I remember when I finished celebrating, I was on like 174. I think I was I was just nowhere near my seat, and I was with these random people I've never known. But that's what it's all about. And yeah, it was absolute carnage. But that's what it's about, and that's why getting the Champions League was so big for us last year, because of the Bayern Munichs and the PSGs playing those sorts of teams. And to say we lost out to the eventual winners, but we beat them at Villa Park, it just shows how much of a fortress it is, and we really can beat anyone. Because we both said after that game, we think that's the best team we've seen at Villa Park. The way they played, and it's weird, it's unique. It's like a throwback to, like, both wingers are bombing on. It's just, if you score 4, we'll score 5, because even though they kept a clean sheet last night, they don't keep clean sheets for nothing, even in the domestic competition. So it's refreshing to see a team just from the off just go at them. Even they scored 2 against us at Villa Park. Even at Anfield, they didn't sit back at Anfield, and everyone knows what that's like in a European tie. So I think for that Ezri goal, I've never celebrated a goal like that in my life. It was absolute carnage. Again, ended up nowhere near you lot. I ran the opposite side, just kept. It was carnage, and
So me and I think you and Kev went that way. If you could bottle up a moment of what just pure football joy is, then that's that 10-minute spell when you just believe anything is possible. That's what you'd be bottling up, because you just thought, we could actually do this now. Obviously, it would be, but we should have done.
Duran scored to make it 2-1 against West Ham, and we were in the West Ham end, just with our hands on hands on our legs, oh, fucking hell, we don't want to say nothing. And then the guy, the bloke in front, was like, oh, yeah, he punched the chair. And then I think the old man tapped on the back and was like, we should be signing that. That's what we should pay the money for. And he's like, yeah, we should have signed that, Duran. And then we were like, oh, fucking those tight wankers. And hey, no. When the Onana one went in, trying to be subtle, but then my old man just fucking smashed my knee to bits, and he's like cheering like that, and I'm like, Dad, you gotta keep it down, But yeah, when that Duran chance went in, that's a little side note. That was hard to contain the emotions there.
back some games in the league and some of the goals that were scored this season. The Duran one at Everton was obviously a fucking worldie. We were all stood there like, wow, what's a goal? And certain games, like the Forest game at home later on in the season, where I thought, yeah, we're starting to believe now. We needed to win that. Some big moments throughout the season, but the PSG game is definitely, that's what we won't forget for a hell of a long time.
We deservedly beat them as well. I think 3-2 flattered them. I remember us being, we played a 3 at the back. We played 5, didn't we? I remember I think we had Luca Dean and Matty Cash right and left wing back, and I remember playing because obviously we played Leipzig. Played them a few times in pre-seasons, haven't we? And I remember we played them. Didn't we play them in the pre-season last pre-season? Didn't they? And they beat us. I'm pretty sure. And I remember just thinking, oh, it's going to be tough. But then they were on a bad spell at the time, and I thought, well, we might be able to catch them off guard, sort of. And I remember Xavi Simons wasn't playing either. I think he was suspended or he's injured. And I remember, we just played so well. And I remember thinking then, like, because that was our 5th game, I think. I remember thinking then, I was like, we deserve to be here. Like the way we played, and and again the squad that we had. Barkley was playing at Luton the year before. Ollie's come up through the leagues. Matty Cash, who was signed from a championship club. McGinn scored. Like all those guys were involved in goals, and it's not like we've gone out and bought all these stars. Even Duran, we bought for peanuts. When you look back on it from the MLS, he scored. But that was another moment when Duran scored. When Duran came off the bench, scored to make it 2-1. I was like, Jesus, like I really do think we can kind of hang with these guys now. Like we can go to places where not many clubs pick up points and then do that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Rank for the season as a whole. I mean, if we rewound back to August and I said to you, we'll finish 6th in the league and get Europa League, we'll get to the semi-final of the FA Cup, and we'll get to the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, the Champions League. Sorry, you'd probably say yes, that would be a great season, but I would counter that and say, obviously, later it's turned into a nearly season for me this year, or what could have been season. I've put down a ranking of 7.5 because we've had a lot of good moments, but like I said, I feel it's a nearly season, and that's maybe more because of the FA Cup. I think 6th in the league isn't a bad thing. And Cookie, yes, I'm loving the comments. Can Villa build on this season's success, or will European football be a stretch too far? I reckon we can win the Europa League next season, don't you?
Our depth. Obviously, we don't know what's happening in the summer, but our depth is very good. And obviously, you got 2 young players. You've got the lad from Turkey and the lad from Feyenoord that are coming in. Don't know how much of a part they're going to play, but we've already added 2 players. We know players are going to go in the summer. Obviously, Bailey's basically gone from what reports are. But I think our depth is good. I don't think we'll be stretched because I think we learned that in the Conference League season where we trickled across the line. That I don't know if everyone remembers, but that Liverpool game at home where we drew 3-3 with Duran off the bench. I remember that. Like we were awful, and I remember thinking that because that's the point that we needed in the end. And I just thought prior to the game, I was like, it's going to be tough this, and then we ended up just again trickling along the line with an injury-ridden squad, who all the players were just fucked when you think about it. Everyone was playing. A lot of players played around 50, got around the 50 mark that year. Sorry. So yeah, I don't think we'll be stretched too thin. Well, I'd like to think not anyway. Just with the depth we have. Yeah, I was thinking initially when you look back to August, I would have said an 8. Again, you look at FA Cup semi-final, Champions League quarter-final, you finish 6th on goal difference. The fact that the profit you make on a player like Duran, I think it goes underestimated as well. I think all in it's like 70-something million. That's a big positive for me. You think that where we bought him to 2 years, we flipped. That price tag of like 4 times over or whatever it is that we paid for him. So yeah, I would initially go with an 8, but like you said, because the end of the season happened the way it did, in the sense of FA Cup semi-final, the battering we got there, and the league losing out on goal difference, it leaves a sour taste. So I can understand why you might be like a 7 or a 7.5, but I would go like 7 as like a bare minimum. For me,
the last bit each time. Like, how do we, you know, 2 semi-finals in 3 years? I mean, fucking hell, 5 years ago we'd have just laughed at you if you had said that. And I think the more you do it, the more you get used to it. But how do we find a way of getting through them games? Because Palace, we were awful, weren't we? I were awful. I would say our 2 worst performances through the season were Palace in the cup and United on the last day. But yeah,
what Emery likes, the fact, because teams in England don't play how that Olympiacos team played. They were literally, I call it terrorist football. The fact that they basically that's the easiest way of putting it. They're all or nothing. Like, they will, when they attack, they all go together. Like, they'll sit in and then they'll just go at you, and like they'll go and they'll get both wing backs going. They'll get both wingers going. They'll get one of their, basically both DMs will go. Their set midfielder, they'll go. Everyone will just go, and Stephen, please just speak in Hindi. I can't speak that, I'm afraid. I can't speak that. But yeah, the Olympiacos game is absolutely bonkers. It was basically a basketball match, and that whenever we've been involved in that situation, we're always poor. So that's the really, like the Olympiacos game. That's what I put that down to. The Palace one, Glasner obviously has Unai's number. I mean, every time we go up against them, like, we just get absolutely like turned over. That's some.
we can keep it tight for 60 minutes and then snatch one. But do you not think them games we need to, like, Palace come out and we're on the front foot in the semi-final, like, waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it's hard to get up to another level when another team is swarming all over you. I think that's something that he needs to look at, like maybe just change the tactics slightly.
And we were like 14th, I think, 4 points, one away from home, or 16th. There's one or two. And I'm just thinking, like, when you're that poor away from home, like, you shouldn't be finishing in the Champions League or any European football if you're 14th in the league table, in the away form table. I get frustrated at the fact that, player for player, I think we are in the top 4, top 5 teams in this league. So it's frustrating that you go to places or even neutral grounds like Wembley, and then you don't go for it. And that is frustrating because the amount of talent we have, like, we shouldn't have to sit back, and you can bring in philosophies and the way coaches operate and stuff like that. But at home, we go at every single team. We never sit back at home. Like, so why can't, when we play, I know, for example, the Palace or the Ipswich at Portman Road, like you look at that game, it's like, why are we drawing 2-2 to Ipswich? Like, why are we sitting in? Because like they should have beat us that day. We were awful. It's just like, why are we sitting in? And okay, we've got to be aware of the lap and got to be aware of Hutchinson, and we don't have to bomb on 2-4 because you've got Davis that can come the other way at left wing back. It's like, well, no, don't what. Yeah, and like because I remember we played Ezri at right back, and that was one of the reasons why I thought we done that. We played Carlos in the middle, and I was like, well, why are we putting Ezri out there? I thought it was for Davies, and I was like, yeah, why are we doing that when we know Ezri's better in the middle? And if we play anywhere near like we can, we'll beat Ipswich, and that's the frustrating thing. And yeah, that's one thing I hope going into next year. We, say for example, we get, I don't know, off the top of my head, Brighton away from home, first game of the season. I just don't want to see us sit back, soak up the pressure. And I get you have to do that at times, but I don't think we should go to games. Obviously, your intention is to win, but if you look like towards the end of the season, the amount of talent we had, you had that front four. I'll say Rodgers on the right, Rashford on the left, and you had Watkins and Asensio as your front two. That talent, and you've got Yuri and behind playing the ball. It's like that. There is Champions League level. You shouldn't have to worry about what Ruter and João Pedro is going to do the other end. Like you got to go for them. Do you know what I mean? And that's one thing I hope going into next year we kind of, because we do sit back and give too much respect to teams when we play away from home.
Than me and you do, but it's becoming more of a pattern, isn't it, as the year goes on, and as the years go on or the seasons go on. Like you said, our home form is insane. Apart from obviously the Arsenal game, which was the first home game of the season, we didn't lose, did we? Cookie. Yeah. We'll just go on before we finish. We will do an episode on who we think we should keep, sell, bring in, that kind of episode. But we'll have a little look at next season. Obviously, we haven't got Champions League, so that does affect it. Helps Newcastle out massively because, like you said earlier, they can keep certain players. We are going to probably have to sell two big players, I would say. If you had your way, what two would if we're saying two, what two would you pick that would bring good money? Thank you, Andy Cook.
But, you don't pay nothing for him, so you say you get 45, 50 for him. A fully fit JJ, yeah, I'd probably say around the 50, 60 mark. Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly that. I do think Morgan's in a different category to him. But yeah, I think for me, JJ would be the obvious one, just because depth in wide areas. It's clear to see we're going to get another winger as well, especially with Bailey going. So I'd personally say JJ. And then you've had, for me, I wouldn't want to see Martinez go. I think he's our best player. Yeah, I think he's fantastic. I wouldn't want to see him go. So there's been links with Onana today. Again, thinking purely on a depth perspective, you've got Buba, Yuri, Barkley, who Emery's confirmed is not leaving, and you got Barrenechea, that's come back from being Valencia's player of the season. So, you have those four players there. If you got rid of Onana, you got plenty of depth there. And if it weren't Onana, probably the next one I'll probably say is probably Enzo, because again, the return that you'd get on investment, you don't know what he's, again, playing devil's advocate, you don't know what he'd be like in the Prem. He might struggle with the physicality aspect of it, you just don't know. But for me, if I had to pick two, I would probably say JJ and maybe Onana. Onana, he has done good, and I feel like the last 5-6 games, he was probably our best player. But the thing that frustrates me about him is that he does those things, like it happened at Everton at home where he got fouled for the Dwight McNeil goal when we went 1-0 down, and he just stayed on the floor and he never touched him, and he was out for months. And I remember, like, he just always seems to. There was always a niggling problem with him, for me personally, if you're spending £50 million on a player at Villa's level where we're at, £50 million at United, City, whatever, or Liverpool, that's normal. But if you're spending £50 million on a player at Aston Villa, they've got to be a shoo-in, like, to start. And to me, he isn't. To me, he's back up to Yuri and Buba. I think Yuri and Buba are in that level above him. So although he done so well for us towards the end of the season, if I had to pick one, and again, it's going purely off speculation of surrounding both, I'll go JJ and Onana. Yeah.
Be more appreciated somewhere else, and I actually think his numbers aren't. He's really good up until the box sometimes. I think he could probably, but he probably knows that. He probably knows he can work on his numbers, and he should be getting double figures each season, or at least 7 or 8 goals each season, and the same with assists. I've put down here Buendia. I would imagine he goes. Nedeljkovic, Bailey. I've put Ramsey, and then maybe someone like a Luca Dean or an Ilan Jr. coming back. Because we are going to the big ones. Yeah. Top.
For Dendonka. Do you then have to then sell another big player? I don't know. I don't know how tight we are with it. You see so many things go on. Yeah. It's reported 25 million for Bailey.
50 for him. I think more closer to the 50 mark, especially being English. Then you're at 75. I think we'll, despite PSR concerns, I do think we'll be trying to bring in 4 at least, spending in excess of 100. But no, for obviously I know the Turkish Ozcan or whatever his name is. I think he will be in and around the first team. Um, the striker from Feyenoord, obviously time will tell, but we've got players like Rory Wilson and Louis Barry that so we're not stuck on strikers that are of similar age. Do you know what I mean?
Believe because you give him the pre-season coming off an injury, so I don't believe it. But I just saw a report. He wouldn't go there. He wouldn't go there, would he? Maybe. Who knows? But yeah, I'd like to say, I don't believe that because you give him pre-season, it's just paper talk. But like I says, Wilson just signed a new deal. You're not going to sign a new deal unless you get guaranteed a. Yeah. So again, like he says, that Yasin Ozcan, I hope he's in around the squad. Again, playing devil's advocate, you now got 3 left-footed centre halves. We saw it when we first signed Powell. I remember we played away at Valencia. He played left back. Mings played left centre half, and Konsa played right centre half. And then you had Matty Cash bombing on as like the right winger. The way what we do now at Matson, so we might see a situation now where we do set up sometimes where you have like a Powell left back, and then you have a Mings left centre half, or if this Yasin Ozcan is what everyone says he is, You have one of them, or he plays left back because he plays left back for Kasim Passa. He played left wing as well. He played left wing. He played left wing, left back, and left centre back. So it's an unknown, isn't it? Like we don't know. Mm.
I think obviously it'd be interesting to see what happens with Asensio and Rashford. I don't think Rashford will come back, but I still think there's a chance Asensio will. But I think we'll be in the market for a winger regardless. And I think we've got to make at least 3 signings that change your first 11, because otherwise, you see today with United signing Cunha, teams are gonna get better, and it doesn't take a lot to get left behind. So if we want to see challenge for the Europa and challenge again for being in the top 4, we need to improve the squad regardless of PSR. It's not really an issue.
£pound mark, I think. You sell Bailey for 25, and for the 25 you've got, you're buying Bremo for 25 million along with the Bailey money. It's a no brainer for me, and he's a player that you play him out on the right. You then got Rodgers central, or God forbid anything happens to Rodgers, you can play him Bremo off of volley. That's just a player that if you look 100% in set pieces.
Big signing from any team in the Prem, it would probably be Mbeumo that you take. I like Semenyo. I just think Mbeumo is more of a Finnish article than Semenyo, isn't he?
I play. Touching on what you said about Asensio and Rashford, Asensio on about 12 million, I think it was, if you were to sign him. For me, obviously, he has so much experience and he has that touch of class that we don't have. I remember when we signed him, we said he was like, no one has that, like similar to thing when Coutinho first came round. No one has that sort of, I don't know how to describe it, like that ability, in our squad, the touch he has. Yeah, and yeah, the eye test. That's the easiest way of saying it. But the thing for me is that to sign him and to go through a season, because he loved Asensio, he started more or less every game. But to go through a season of watching Rodgers on the right hand side, I can't do like Rodgers.
And it was something like 6 games all season we won with Rodgers actually playing as a number 10. Yeah, really low, and it really surprised me. I don't know if it was right, but I'm pretty sure it was something like 6 games from all the games that we'd won with Rodgers starting as a 10. But I thought about it. He obviously probably would have started if you're on the left. He would have started.
So you've got until Christmas time where you had Yuri and Onan, or Yuri and Barkley. So Yuri wouldn't have been playing off a volley. Yeah, Yuri McGinn, like he would have been the only he would have been. Because we would have won more than 6 games prior to Booba coming back from injury. Surely, yeah, but to win what? Surely that's relegation form if you haven't even won 6 games before the turn of the year. Yeah, well, maybe I don't know, but I remember him playing central until Booba came back from injury. Because when Booba came back, like I said, you had McGinn and you also had Yuri. Then sometimes played off a volley. Asensio came in. I can't remember. Yeah, but it's an interesting one. But for me, it's weird because Rodgers as a 10 is probably our best player. It's weird. Like that's my view on it anyway. Like Rodgers as a 10 central is unbelievable. I remember watching him again, West Ham away, first game of the season. We were there, and obviously pre-season he looked superb. He was our only really shining light in a bad pre-season because we were getting spanked every game. Him and Onana play well in pre-season, and Costa actually. But yeah, I remember just looking at a West Ham game. He was gliding past everyone. The Arsenal game at home, that's when he really kind of put himself on the map, and yeah, it surprised me that, to be fair. But sorry, no, go on. Might be, who knows? But going back to the Asensio thing, I'm not sure about Asensio solely on the fact that I don't know if I can see a Rodgers playing out on the right the whole time. So if we didn't sign Asensio, even though it's for a really low fee, I wouldn't. It doesn't phase me too much. But again, if we signed him, then I would still be happy because we know the talent he has.
Things for depth because Rodgers, again, talking about he played what I think he had the most appearances for Villa for like 53 or something like that. Yeah, so you can't expect him to do that season after season after season. And I would then say, if you don't sign him and you want to bring in a winger and a 10 or two attacking players, you're spending big money. If you can do Asensio for that, then you probably go and get Mbeumo for 50 or a Garnacho or someone like that. Spend, another big sale. You could probably got a break transfer record, but I think it has to be on a winger that you break it on. And again, subplot, but if you obviously saw the thing where it had appearances, goals, and assists, and Ollie was in the top two for all three. So replacing Ollie, you're spending massive, massive money, but keeping Ollie, getting Asensio, and you can spend big on a winger. That's what I would do.
I just don't like. But yeah, if we signed him, then yeah, again, I'll be happy. The whole Rashford thing, everyone thought that was dead and buried, but the thing I put in earlier, well, it's kind of come out now that it isn't all that you kind of thought it was. I think personally that he's obviously going to have suitors. Obviously, Barcelona are the number one, are kind of leading the race if they want him. So I think in my head, it's a similar thing to January. Like he's going to play the field. He's gonna see if Barcelona want him. If they do, then great. If not, then he'll go look elsewhere. He was looking at Milan in January as well. They didn't go for him in the end. They haven't got no European football next year, so he won't go there. They've just sacked their whole entire manager and their backroom staff. They've let them all go, so that's an absolute awful place to go at the minute. So he won't go there. If he's short of suitors and we haven't signed, like a Garnacho or an Mbeumo, or even an Asensio, whoever, or you only sign one of them, I can see us going in for him if the wages are right. That is a big if. But if the wages are right, or trying to strike another loan deal, because again, it's come out saying that he hasn't ruled out a move. We're definitely not number one on his list, but we might be third or fourth down, and those wages he's on, other clubs aren't willing to take a gamble on him.
I think they would be the top two, and I wouldn't, unless he gets a low-level Champions League team. I don't. I would put us right in the mix, but again, I think it's the financial package. Definitely have him back, but I would prefer him as a winger than a centre forward.
But yeah, no, for me, that would generally be like my number one sort of sign this summer, just because I believe he gives us that sort of. We haven't had a player like Jack since Jack, sorry, that's come and got us off our seat. Like every time we watched him, he was exciting to watch. He was like Unai gave him that license when he was out wide to just do as he kind of pleases. Even up front, I thought he was a willing runner. He worked hard. For me, I'd be all over it. Again, it's the wage package because 350 a week. We're not going to even touch anywhere near that mark. It'd have to be the low two, probably like 225 at a push. probably. Who knows? But yeah, I'd love us to sign him. I'll be honest. But yeah, like I says, see what happens. It's going to be a long summer ahead. And we finish Conference League places. If we get European football and it's just a League Cup, it's the weight off the shoulders, because that might be the problem as well with the players, that it's been so many years without a trophy now, where again the League Cup would mean the world. I know there's another thing that kind of stung, was that Liverpool were good, were okay this year, but I thought it was a bad league, and so I thought that if we win the FA Cup, you go to a community, you play a Community Shield. Even winning the Community Shield, you then got 2 trophies in the space of a couple months. It's mad. But obviously, again, it's going to be a long summer. We're saying all this. Who knows? Chelsea put in a bid for Rodgers for 110 million. He goes, and then you don't know what goes on. Watkins and Martinez could both go. You really don't know what's going to happen. We're in that world where apparently we have to sell, at least one big one, and a few of the, we don't know who that big player is going to be. We thought Emi was going to go, and then Unai says he ain't going to go. Barcelona have already found Barcelona have signed Garcia, and they've also got ter Stegen, so they're not then going to sign Martinez, because then you've got 3. Well, you've got 2 world class keepers plus Garcia, who's top as well. So that's the number one place he was going to go out of the way. People were saying about United, he'd be stupid to go there, but I don't see that. So it's how many other. The only other one I could see was Milan, because they're on about getting rid of Mike Maignan, but they ain't got no European football. So the 3 teams he's kind of linked with, I don't see happening. So yeah, it's a weird one. Like I said, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, so we'll leave it there. Thanks everyone for watching. We've had quite a few comments today, mainly from and one Newcastle fan. That's all right. We'll take it. We'll take the views. All right. Yeah, we'll be back next week. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Up the Villa.